What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I really appreciate being here. Tonight's video is a recipe that I'm submitting as part of a collaboration. It's part of the holiday keto recipe challenge. It's being hosted by channel Doreen's Food Prep Resources. I'll put a link down in the description for her channel, so go check it out. There's a bunch of great creators that are submitting recipes for this challenge. So I encourage you to go check them all out, and hope you enjoy this one. I'm going to make sort of my take on a shepherd's pie that is low carb, made with cauliflower instead of mashed potatoes. And the rules for this collaboration, or challenge as it is basically everything that you use needs to come out of your pantry or freezer. Nothing fresh. So everything I've in this recipe is either dry goods out of the freezer or out of the pantry. So without further ado, we'll get started. Okay, so for tonight's recipe, it's pretty simple. Like I say, everything is dry goods or frozen produce. They've got my ground beef that I'm gonna put in the shepherd's pie. I buy this ground beef. It's a lean ground beef. I get it from a local farm. They package it up in 1 pound balls like this, and it comes frozen. I've had this sitting out since yesterday. Just makes it a little bit easier. I've got some frozen peas here that I'm gonna throw in. Of course, need some butter for various parts of it. Salt and pepper. I like to use Redmond's real salt for all my salt. Some fresh cracked pepper, and then to thicken the ground beef and everything up in the shepherd's pie, I like to use this glucomannan powder. It's a cognac or konjac root powder. I find it works better than other thickeners that are keto friendly, especially in dishes that are cooked like this. There are some other thickeners that are better for baking or for cold dishes, but this is the one I like, and you barely have to use any. Like this jar here will probably last me forever. Now of course I've got my cauliflower in a pot here, and I'm just going to boil it, cook it till it's nice and soft so I can mash it up. And then I got a pan over here ready to brown up my ground beef. So I'm going to get started at that, and then we'll come back when we're ready for the next part. One thing I wanted to show everyone, if you cook ground beef quite often, or ground chicken or turkey, I highly suggest you pick up one of these mashers. I think they're like $15-20 on Amazon. They make it really easy to chop up the meat while you're cooking it. I find it's one of my favorite and most used kitchen utensils. So we'll get that chopped up, and of course the ground beef doesn't come seasoned, so obviously we're going to need to add some salt in here. If I can get the salt shaker open here. So we're going to put a nice bit of salt into this while we're cooking it. And while we're waiting for that meat to start cooking there, I forgot to mention that we're going to be using some beef broth to add to the meat and the peas, and to help with the thickening. Because once the meat's cooked, it is lean ground beef, so there won't be an awful lot there for moisture. So I'm just going to use this to add a bit of moisture to it. Okay, so our ground beef's nice and browned up here. You see rendered most of its fat and cooked it off. Like I say, this ground beef is pretty lean that I get. So like I say, we've got salt in there already. Cauliflower is looking good. It's getting pretty close. It was frozen, so it's not going to take too long to cook, but you want to make sure that the stalks are soft enough to mash as well. So we're going to grab our pepper. We'll add some of that into the ground beef. Obviously you could add any kind of seasoning you want in here, if you want garlic powder, or even if you want to add some red onion to this. Whatever you want to put in there is up to you for sure. I just like to stick with basic seasoning with this kind of recipe. So what we're going to do is we'll add some of the stock in here, and that'll get us some moisture back into the ground beef here, and then definitely add some good flavor to it as well. So we'll turn the heat back up on that a little bit and bring that stock up to temperature so that we can start adding the rest of our ingredients to it. Okay, so cauliflower is all done, so I've strained it in a strainer here. What I'm going to do is put it back in the pot that I cooked it in. And then what we're going to do is put it back on the heat for a little bit, to just at a low temperature, just to try and cook any of that remaining, or some of the remaining moisture out of it, because obviously being a vegetable like this, it holds a lot of moisture, and we don't want to really have, we want to have a good mash for this recipe. And you can see the stock in the ground beef has come to a light boil here. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab again, that's the glucomannan powder. It's made from a konjac root. They actually make noodles out of these roots as well that are really low carb. They're actually 0 carb noodles. They don't have any flavor, but if all you want is something to put sauce on, then it's a good option. So I'm going to try and get some of this out of here. This is something you don't need much of for this, so I've got a 1/4 teaspoon here. And we're going to start with that, and we're just going to spread it around in here, and then we'll stir that in. You definitely don't want to go heavy with this this powder right away. Less is more with this stuff. If you go with too much, it'll get really thick on you really quick, and that's not really what we're looking for. I just want something to, you know, make sort of a gravy for the shepherd's pie. So that's starting to thicken up there. We'll turn, the heat's about medium, so we're good on the heat. You know, like with a lot of thickeners, you almost need to bring it back up to a boil to get them to their full potential. So that is looking pretty good. I don't think we'll add any more there. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some of the frozen peas to this. You know, frozen peas are great to cook with because you can just add them straight to ground beef or something like this, and then they'll cook up nice and even with very little time. Plus, we're going to be putting this into under the broiler for a few minutes to hopefully brown up the cauliflower a little bit. So by the time that's all done, these peas will be nice and cooked through. So that's all mixed up. We'll keep that on a medium-low heat for a couple more minutes here and let that finish thickening up. Our cauliflower here is drying out. You can see it's actually sticking to the bottom of the pot here, but that's fine. So what we'll do is we'll turn off the heat there, because we don't really want or need any more heat with that. And I'll take it right off the heat actually. You can see the cauliflower is actually starting to break up by itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a good knob of butter here. We'll let that start melting in. Might as well go for 2. Everything tastes better with butter. I don't really know any time or anything like too much butter. So we'll let that start melting in, and I'll give that a mash up. And like I think everyone knows how to mash things. So what we'll do is we'll come back when I'm going to put everything together, and then we'll get it into the oven. Okay, so everything's ready to go. We got our ground beef and peas and our mashed, nice mashed cauliflower here. I added some salt and pepper to the cauliflower as well, because we all know how bland cauliflower can be. So that turned out good. The ground beef is ready to go as well. So what I'm going to do is just use this stoneware dish so that I can put it in the broiler for a few minutes. So what we're going to do is just going to layer this meat mixture down here in the bottom. This would probably be a pretty good recipe to, if you wanted a food prep for the week, you can make a bigger batch of this, or make it in, separate it into smaller containers that you can freeze or put in the fridge for later in the week. I have a bad habit of not doing anything fancy for my food prep. A lot of times I just make straight ground beef, and that's what I go with, but that's just the way I am with my keto lifestyle. But this would definitely be good as a make ahead thing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the cauliflower, and we're just going to spread that out on top of the ground beef mixture here. And I don't think we really want too thick of a layer, but we'll just cover that right up here. Looks like we got pretty much just enough cauliflower made here for this. I've got my oven set to the broil setting here, because really we're not necessarily looking to cook anything or finish cooking anything here. It's just to brown the top of it, such as it is. It's not really going to get too brown because it's not mashed potatoes or anything. But what we're going to do, so that's in there. So what we're going to do, just to give it a bit of a better chance to brown, what I've done is I've melted some butter here, and I've got my silicone brush here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to brush some more butter right on top of that cauliflower mash, and then hopefully that'll help with the browning. And again, if you know me and anything I've done on my channel, I'm never shy with butter. In fact, I think it makes the cauliflower taste a lot better. So might as well brush that right on there. So that's nice and coated there. Got a full dish there. So what we'll do is we'll throw that under the broiler, on the middle rack basically. So we'll get that in there, and that'll probably, I don't know, take 5 or 6 minutes. So we'll bring you back when it's ready to go. Okay, so I think we're about as done as I want to leave it. I don't want to let it get too overdone at all. You can see that the cauliflower started to brown on top. I don't want it to burn at all because it would get pretty bitter. That took a bit longer than I was expecting it to. I was in the broiler probably I don't know, 10, 12 minutes, something like that. But it's definitely got a little bit of a crust on the top there. So what we'll do, I'm gonna let this sit for a couple minutes just to set up a little bit, and then I'll bring you back and we'll dish it out and give it a try. Okay, so our shepherd's pie is cooled off a little bit here. So I'm going to attempt to cut out a piece here. It's not going to stick together as well as maybe a traditional shepherd's pie would that was using flour and potatoes. As you can see, it's pretty loose, but there's a decent kind of gravy in there. Get a little bit more of the mashed potatoes here. You can say anything that's done with cauliflower, while it is a good substitute, isn't always going to perform quite as well, but you know, it is what it is. When you're trying to stay low carb or keto or whatever, it's you do what you have to do to enjoy the things that you've always enjoyed. So here's what it looks like. Like I say, it's, you know, what I would usually expect shepherd's pie to look like. You've got your mashed whatever on top and the meat inside. Now again, you could use different meats for that. You could use I don't know, chicken or turkey, or even veal if you're so inclined. I'm sure that would all work. I don't know if you can see it, but it's still steaming pretty good, so probably about to burn my mouth off. But we'll try and get some of all of that, and then we'll give this a try. Yeah, it's really good. I like all you really taste the butter in the mashed cauliflower, so that's definitely not something you want to skimp on. But yeah, it turned out pretty good and nice and easy, quick. Doesn't take any special utensils or anything, so I definitely give this one a try. So again, this is a collab that was done through Doreen's Food Prep Resource. Her channel will be linked down below, so go check out that channel. There'll be a playlist there with all the other creators that collabed with this challenge. And that's about it. So if you like the content, please consider subscribing, hit that thumbs up, and leave a comment down below if you give this a try. Until next time, keep on thriving.